The Miller Genuine Draft Pontiac of Rusty Wallace is hooked up, and he just drives away from the competition.
And took home the biggest single race pot of cash in NASCAR history.
Car is strong and is rarely challenged for the top spot. Meet and bang their way to the finish line. Davey Allison wins.
Teams spend hours building cars in the shop. They bring them to the track and use them to chase their dreams. But when that car is no longer needed, what happens to it? Race cars and their craftsmanship live on, sometimes for a lot longer than realized. Like individual drivers have stories, so do the cars themselves. They go back to the track for decades, their accomplishments carried with them. Sometimes they fade away in front of everyone. There's a lot of history hidden under the sheet metal. Kyle Petty won 8 Cup races, but half of those wins came in the same car. That special chassis was called the Duke, named after John Wayne. Driving for Felix Sabates, Kyle's win at Rockingham in March 1990 was worth $294,000. At the time, it was the most valuable single race in NASCAR history because of a bonus Unocal offered if someone could win from the pole. Every week they added $7,600 to a prize that wasn't claimed in a year. Petty's dominant car won the pole and led 433 of 492 laps to claim the big prize. Kyle and the Duke were on their way to winning again at Rockingham in the fall of 1990 before engine problems. Their dominance at the Rock continued when they won in March of 1991 and got to victory lane for a third time in October 1992. In that race, Petty led 484 of 492 laps. Finally, the car won at Pocono in 1993 for its 4th win in 4 years. But at the end of 1993, Sabco Racing sold the Duke to an ARCA team in the Midwest. In 1994, Petty's performance fell apart. In the first half of the year, Kyle led only 6 laps. When Felix Sabates heard the Duke was gone, he demanded the team buy it back. They found it in bad shape, sitting outside for several months. Back at the shop, Sabco Racing had crews work 24 hours a day to restore it in time for its return at Charlotte in October. Unfortunately, it could only finish in 30th. The Duke returned in 1995.
Let's deal with the Duke first. That's the car that Kyle Petty won a bunch of races and poles a few years back here at Rockingham. It was back after a strange journey out west.
I don't know how we got it back. I tell you, we won races with it in 90 and 91 and 92. For 2 or 3 years there, we won some races with it. And then we sold it. It was just an old race car. And it ended up with some ARCA guy out in Iowa somewhere. I don't know. And Steve Knipe, our parts guy, he knew who he had sold it to, so we called him back, and they said, yeah, that car's no good. We're not using it anymore. So they had it sitting somewhere. So they went all the way to Iowa and picked it up, and we put it back together. And we've run it 2 or 3 times. It's been a pretty good old race car. I can't complain about it. Hopefully, I don't know if it's as fast as it used to be, but hopefully it's somewhere close.
Recently, a car claiming to be the Rockingham winner was on display at the NASCAR Hall of Fame. It still had the 1995 Pontiac sheet metal on it, but had been repainted in the 1990 paint scheme. While the Duke was winning races at Rockingham, James Bond was winning at Charlotte. Robert Yates Racing chassis number 007 was built in 1990. It made its debut at Charlotte in October of that year and won the race. It was wrecked at Atlanta in March 1991 and rebuilt for its return to Charlotte in May 1991. It won both the All-Star race that year and the Coke 600, earning over $450,000. Then it won at Michigan in June. By July of 91, the cover was blown, and the car was exposed to the world as the subject of countless articles. It was called either James Bond or 007, depending on who was talking. The car saw infrequent use and returned to the track at Charlotte in October. It finished second to Jeff Bodine, who won on fuel mileage. 007 wasn't driven again until Charlotte in May 1992. The team planned to use it in the All-Star race and the Coke 600 once again. Because Allison won the Daytona 500 and Talladega, he would win the $1 million Winston bonus if he won the 600. 007 was right for the job. In the first All-Star race at night, Davey earned $50,000 for winning the pole and led every lap in the first segment, earning him another $50,000 bonus. The field was then inverted and Allison was sent to the back. Slowly, he climbed through the field and was running third when the final lap began. By the time it ended, it turned out to be both the best and worst of possible outcomes.
And suddenly, the black Chevrolet is spinning. Kyle lifts for a split second to miss Dale, and Davey grabs the chance. He will pull even out of turn 4 as the two beat and bang their way to the finish line. Davey Allison wins, but he's out of control. In a shower of sparks reminiscent of a 4th of July fireworks display, Allison careens off the wall, coming to a rest in the infield.
Kyle Petty did what several movies couldn't. He killed James Bond. Allison's chassis was destroyed beyond repair. Instead of bringing 007 to the Coke 600 for the $1 million prize, Robert Yates brought chassis number 10, which they called Bo, considering Bo Derek starred in the 1979 movie called 10. Despite being built with the same measurements as 007, Bo wasn't as fast and could only finish 4th in the Coke 600. Ultimately, Allison would lose the Winston Million at Darlington, when the rain shortened the race, handing the win to Darrell Waltrip. The next car to gain fame in the 90s came from Penske Racing. Rusty Wallace's black Pontiac was dominant for several years, and the best car was chassis number 9, better known as Midnight. In the September 1992 race at Richmond, Rusty led 231 laps and won easily. Penske Racing had a rule where they wouldn't name a car until it won a race. Because this race ended after 10:30 and victory lane stretched late, this car was named Midnight. In the rest of 1992, it would get 2 more top 5 finishes at Martinsville and North Wilkesboro. In 1993, Midnight was dominant. It started the season with a win at Rockingham before it finished 2nd at Richmond. And days after Alan Kowicki's tragic passing, Midnight won an emotional race at Bristol. The car had a clean sweep of all the races in April when it won the next 2 races at North Wilkesboro and Martinsville. Midnight was so good it even inspired another chassis. Rusty won at Richmond in September with a car that was named Midnight Rider. To end the year, Midnight scored wins at Rockingham and Atlanta. As an emotional season came to an end, Midnight completed a Polish victory lap with Dale Earnhardt to salute both Kowicki and Davey Allison.
The crowd is cheering and waving in happiness, but you know that in many eyes there are tears.
In 1994, Penske cars were converted to Ford Thunderbirds and continued their winning ways. Midnight won at Rockingham, while Midnight Rider won at Martinsville. Both cars were so famous that t-shirts were made for either one. When Jeff Gordon won his first race, it was Midnight that finished 2nd. It won at Bristol in August and swept Dover. But Midnight ran out of luck as it got older. Dale Earnhardt wrecked it at Bristol in August 1995. That led to Rusty throwing a water bottle at Dale in the garage. Then in the 1996 Coke 600, Midnight was taken out in a big crash. Now several years old, the car was pushed to the corner of the garage. Looking to improve their performance in 1997, Midnight was brought back for one last time in the All-Star event, but lost an engine late in the race.
Dave Roberts and David Little rebuilt Midnight, Rusty Wallace's favorite car. Rusty wanted it here. I don't know how many members of the team thought it was the car to go to here this weekend. What are they saying?
Well, I talked to Rusty yesterday during qualifying, and he said, man, when I asked those guys if we could pull that car out, they said, are you nuts?
In total, Midnight won 13 races and had 30 top 5 finishes in 38 races. Rusty led almost 1/3 of the laps he drove with Midnight. When Wallace was inducted into the NASCAR Hall of Fame in 2013, his favorite car joined him. Midnight was restored back to its 1994 condition as a Thunderbird. When Midnight stopped winning, a new car took its place as NASCAR's most dominant. Blacker was a car driven by Jeff Gordon that got its name from the black paint it had during testing. The car made its debut at Rockingham in February 1995 and won the race. Then it won Atlanta 2 weeks later. Then the next week it dominated at Darlington before it was taken out in a crash. The car was rebuilt for the Brickyard 400, where it finished 6th. It ended the year by winning Gordon's first Southern 500, and then again at Dover. Jeff Gordon won the 1995 Winston Cup Championship by 34 points. Of his 7 wins in 95, 4 came with Blacker. In 1996, the car won 5 races, including sweeps of Dover, Darlington, and a win at Pocono. In 1997, it won at Rockingham, Pocono, and the first race at the California Speedway. By the summer of '97, Gordon had 26 Cup wins, but 12 of those were with Blacker. The car was retired in 1997 and placed in the Hendrick Motorsports Museum, but at the 1998 All-Star race, Blacker made its return. It was covered in DuPont's Chrome Illusion paint that changed color in the light and cost $17 an ounce. Once again, Blacker got the lead, but in a miscalculation, Gordon ran out of gas entering turn 1 on the final lap and lost the race. Blacker still sits in the Hendrick Museum in that same paint job it had in 1998. In a past episode, we briefly mentioned a chassis from Richard Childress Racing, and we're lucky to get an update. Chassis B106 was a car in the Nationwide series that was raced by Kevin Harvick. It made its debut in the March 2012 race at Bristol and finished in 9th. Then it won the pole at Richmond and led 158 laps before finishing 3rd. A second at New Hampshire was followed by a win at Richmond in September. The car was so good, Elliott Sadler's team used it at Phoenix in November, trying to win the championship. Sadler entered the next-to-last race tied with Ricky Stenhouse for the points lead, but never got to use the car. He crashed it in qualifying. Chassis 106 was brought back to Phoenix in March 2013, but was damaged in a hard crash. Wrecked beyond repair, the car was sent to Road America for safety crews to practice driver extractions. The car still sits there in a storage area in the track infield. Recent photos show its current condition. The yellow Menards paint faded to near white. The car was stripped of all its usable parts, leaving only sheet metal and bare roll bars. The car was once dominant, but now slowly rusts away in a Wisconsin field.